Today we're talking about the Sony a6400 and why I believe it's the best camera for beginner filmmakers and photographers. What's going on, everyone? This is Dwayne from Daring Depictions coming at you with another video. Like I said in the beginning, we're going to be talking about the Sony a6400. Can't show it to you right now because I'm currently using it to record this video, but there'll be plenty of B-roll so you can see how it looks and how it actually fits in hand. I love the Sony a6400. It's actually my first ever camera and it's an absolute workhorse. Everything I've ever filmed or photographed has been shot on the Sony a6400. Now this is an APS-C camera, which means it has a crop sensor, but don't let that deter you from picking this camera up. The fact that the sensor is cropped on this camera has never stopped me from doing anything that I need to do with this camera. When I was first starting out, everyone was saying you can't do professional work with a crop sensor camera, or you're gonna regret spending your money on a crop sensor camera instead of just going and buying a full frame. And I'm here to tell you that they were wrong. I've done weddings with this camera, I've done real estate with this camera, and I've had countless photo shoots with this camera. One of the reasons I picked this camera up was because of its size and portability. The body alone weighs only 14.2 ounces or 403 grams. Pair that with the Sony 18-105 and you're looking at a setup that weighs less than 2 pounds. Mind you, the 18-105 is one of Sony's heavier APS-C lenses. If you throw in a gimbal like the DJI Ronin S for example, you're looking at a 6-pound setup that you can shoot with all day. If you want to make your setup even more compact, I go with something like the Ronin SC or the Zhiyun Weebill S. Those gimbals are designed for smaller, more compact APS-C cameras, unlike the DJI Ronin S, which is meant for larger, heavier, full-frame cameras. Okay, based on my analytics, 90% of you guys watching this video right now aren't subscribed. 90%? What are you doing? Get subscribed. We're trying to hit 1K. Alright, bye. Point is, if size and weight is a big deal for you, I definitely consider the Sony a6400. The Sony a6400 has a 24 megapixel CMOS sensor. 24 megapixels is a great place to start. I know there are cameras that have 30 or even 50 plus megapixels, but if you just slow down and compose your shot, you won't even have to worry about cropping in post. And it's not like you can't crop at all with the Sony a6400. I've cropped plenty of photos and you wouldn't even be able to tell. This camera also shoots up to 10 frames per second with continuous autofocus. This camera shoots 4K 24 frames per second, which is what you're currently seeing right now, and it goes all the way up to 4K 30 frames per second. But if you drop your resolution down to 1080p, this thing can shoot all the way up to 120 frames per second. Also, when you shoot in 4K 24 or 4K 30 or 1080p 120, there's no crop at all. That's a huge plus for real estate videographers because we want to make sure we can get as wide as possible while still being able to slow down our footage in post. So no, this camera doesn't shoot in 4K 60. Sony tends to save that feature for their more higher end cameras like the new Sony a7 IV, but even with the a7 IV, it shoots 4K 60, but it's cropped. And then you have the a7S III and the FX3, and those cameras can shoot 4K 60 uncropped. But for the a7S III and the FX3, you're starting out at $3,500 just for the body alone. 60 frames per second in 180p video is nothing to scoff at. Like I said, I shoot all my real estate in that resolution and frame rate, and none of my realtors have had an issue with it. This camera shoots in 8-bit color, which is perfectly fine if you're just starting out, and it delivers 15 stops of dynamic range. You don't need 10-bit color if you're just starting out. Most beginners wouldn't even know what to do with 10-bit. This camera comes equipped with a plethora of picture profiles, including S-Log2 and S-Log3. I personally use S-Log2 because I think it gives you the best image out of all the profiles. This camera does not come equipped with IBIS. If you want that feature, you're going to have to get the a6500 or the a6600 or jump up to Sony's full frame line. If I'm not mistaken, I believe all of Sony's full frame line comes equipped with IBIS. This camera comes equipped with a flip up LCD, unlike the Sony a7 IV or the Sony a7S III, which has the flip out screen. This way, when you're looking at the camera, you can actually see yourself and compose your shot how you want. The only thing I don't like about the flip up LCD screen is that the Hashi mount is right in the middle of it. So I can't use a microphone or a light without blocking the screen. A simple fix would be to just get a cage, which is what I ended up doing. Or if you want to get something smaller, you can get a cold sheet mount from Small Rig. It's like $20 and way less intrusive than a full cage. The Sony a6400 does not have a record limit, unlike its full frame counterpart, the Sony a7 III. The Sony a7 III has a 30-minute record limit. Again, the a6400 does not. So that begs the question, how long can you record with this camera before it overheats? Now, I've never actually overheated this camera before. The longest video I've ever shot was the Sony 10 to 18mm review, and that video took me over 50 minutes to record. And I was shooting at 4K 24 frames per second. Now granted, I was indoors with no direct sunlight, but 4K at 24 frames per second for over 50 minutes is impressive, especially when you consider my camera wasn't even hot when I finished. The focusing on this camera is great. When you're shooting photos or 1080p video, you're blessed with Sony's face and eye tracking, which works about 98% of the time. But when you go up to 4K video, you lose that feature, which really isn't a deal breaker because Sony's normal autofocusing system works great. Although, it would have been nice if I could have the face and eye tracking in 4K. I recently rented the a7 III for a wedding that I was shooting, and I have to say, the battery life on that thing is like 3 times better than what I get on the Sony a6400. I shot over 1,000 photos that day with the a7 III, and I only made it through half of the battery. On a normal wedding day, if I'm shooting with my a6400, I'm going through 2, maybe 3 batteries. At the end of the day, if you're just starting out in photography or videography and you want to take it serious, but you don't have $3,000, $4,000, or even $5,000 to shell out for a full frame setup, the Sony a6400 is a great buy. You can do weddings, real estate, corporate videos, or even small commercials with this thing. And if you already have a full frame camera like the Sony a7 III or the new a7 IV, this would be the perfect B camera for you. This camera is reasonably priced at $900 compared to its full frame counterparts. And if you look online, you'll see that this camera has held its value over the years. You'll be lucky to see this thing going for anything under $800. Well, that's my review on the Sony a6400. Let me know what you guys think. And if I missed anything, make sure to drop them down in the comments below. This has been your boy Dwayne. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.